Welcome to the eCommerce Growth Show, brought to you by Segmentify, the fast, lean learning machine, the fastest learning, most revenue-generating personalization platform for e-commerce.
Hello guys, welcome to the fourth episode of the second series of the eCommerce Growth Show. It's another beautiful day in sunny Bristol. I'm still in my little lad Joel's bedroom, and at the moment, luckily the kids are downstairs watching the BFG, so hopefully we won't get all sorts of shouts and balls. But I hear Karl's got kids as well, so let's see. Anyway, it's time to welcome our guest, Karl Rutterford. Now, I'm really excited about Karl's story, as he's an experienced corporate leader, a business owner and digital consultant. And he's had 20 years experience working up the ranks at Tesco. He then took the leap and he started his own e-commerce brand, Trading Antiques, and did such an amazing job of that, disrupting the market. It ended up evolving into a consultancy after he got so much demand from his competitors. Anyway, he's since expanded that consultancy into all sorts of areas of e-commerce, but sadly, and being completely honest and open about this, COVID has impacted his business, and he's really keen to talk to us now about his backstory. Hello, Karl.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so I hear you've got a pretty cool story to tell about being on Bullseye, right?
Yes. My former colleague and I at Tesco, we were talking about Bullseye, how cool it was, and Jim Bowen and so on. So we found an opportunity to trial out, if you like. Long story short, we ended up having a trial in London somewhere. We get invited
Yeah.
to the show.
Yeah.
We get onto the show and we do exceptionally well. Stuart was just awesome answering all the
Yeah.
questions. I was deemed to be the dart player, but we get all the way through to Bully's prize board, and we all know that you could either win a speedboat or a car.
Oh my word.
Yeah, we get there. I'm the dart player. I go last. Stuart pops in with a good 37. We need to get 101 or more. And
Yeah.
there comes me, the dart player, and I get 7.
Oh my word.
Naturally, the screen
Gutted.
rolls back. There's a
Yeah.
nice brand new Skoda there waiting for us,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
face just as a picture. We didn't
Yeah.
make it, so
No.
we ended up with our bendy bullies, a tankard, and darts, and our bus fare home, as Jim would say.
That is just heartbreaking, man. I mean, I always thought about that program was so funny, and you'd always like be gunning, wouldn't you, for the people like they're going to get it, and then you get that horrible look at what you could have won. You're like, that is just, why do you do that? That's such a terrible thing to do. Like, but you were saying you can see it even on YouTube, right?
You can see it on YouTube, and it's quite embarrassing because Dave Spikey, who was the co-host, clearly said right at the start that he's going to ask my colleague Stuart a question, but he then decided to stitch me up and ask me a question, and I was totally not prepared and just said some random stuff about dancing, I think, and
Is it?
It's been there on YouTube for everyone to see for the last however many years.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Well, listen, right, I won't do that. I won't stitch you up today, right?
Thank you.
Everything will be cool from beginning to end, right?
Thank you.
Oh, that's so funny. Anyway, right, so let's sort of go to our overarching theme topic, right? So you are, amongst other things, a passionate entrepreneur. And so for our overarching theme today, we're going to talk about what Karl believes from his experience are the kind of main ingredients for anyone out there who is thinking about starting their own business, and particularly at the moment, whilst things have been so massively changed by the current COVID situation. So why don't you tell us all about your thoughts on that, Karl?
Yeah, certainly, Phil, and thanks for the opportunity. The key thing for me really is there's a lot of things that Google will not tell you when you're starting a business. So for me personally, running a business takes you through an emotional roller coaster, which, I think one day I could write a book about it, but it will take you to heights of despair, to the most pride that you've ever had. And it will be an absolute roller coaster. And where I go back, where I always talk to clients, friends, and people who have that idea, I say, look, you can read all you like on Google. It will tell you how to build a business, get a strategy and so on. But I've got some really cool things I could tell you that you just won't find on Google. The way I
I
like to
bet.
put it, Phil, there's always that
Yeah.
scenario of if you're a footballer, you
Mhm.
can train all week, but you'll never be prepared for match day.
No, totally
That's
agree.
how I compare it to a business.
Yeah.
I was not experienced. I had a career at Tesco, so I was exposed to global brands. I worked with them, I nurtured them.
Yeah.
Um, I made some huge sales for some global businesses, but to
Mhm.
start your own business is
Yeah.
as big as how it sounds. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah. No,
no, it's great.
absolutely.
It's great to talk about it. I mean, the one thing I would
Mm,
say straight away is
mm,
you've got to be all in.
yeah.
If you're going to run a business and want it to be successful,
Yeah.
you have to live and breathe it. And
Yeah.
one of the first things I would say straight away is
Mm,
you need to prepare your friends and family that you're going on
yeah.
that journey,
Yeah.
because I often have this conversation with fellow friends and
Mhm.
business leaders who
Mhm.
said you'll only ever get it if you
Yeah.
talk to another business leader. What I mean is there's a certain switch off button that doesn't happen when you run a business, and
Yeah.
to try and connect with your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife,
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
try to get that to resonate is challenging. So
Yeah.
what this means is that you might change as a person. Um, I
Mm,
did. I became a little bit more selfish, which not in a
yeah.
bad way, but I had to
Mhm.
put my business first because I decided I was taking the leap.
Yeah.
But what you find is that as you keep going, and as soon as customers start becoming part of your business, it's like there's another person in the room. 7 o'clock at night when you're having dinner, oh, the phone goes off. It's another order,
Yeah.
or a customer wants some details. You can't just put your phone down. Now,
Yeah.
there might be many people saying, "Well, come on, manage your time a bit better." But
Yeah.
I was fortunate. Well, I could say fortunate, but I'd look back again to say I could have stopped. My business grew from day one and kept growing. So you could say I was always chasing my tail, and a little bit of that lack of business experience exposed me straight away. Um, but it's something you learned to deal with and something that I could pass on to the next generation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, completely.
So
So, so go on.
I think just relating to that before you come in, Phil,
Sure.
if you are going to start your own business, then I would 100% say go and do it. If you're in a full-time position, you've got a side hobby,
Yeah.
take the leap. If you are impacted by COVID,
Mm,
oh, you can't launch a business in COVID. Of course you can.
yeah.
Some of the
Yeah.
biggest well-known entities were born during a recession. You can do it, but
Mm,
you must have self-belief. You
yeah.
must be resilient, and you must live and breathe your product, your
Yeah.
brand, your business.
Yeah. That's
Because
what I
if
was
you,
going to jump on. Absolutely. I was
uh,
thinking to myself, you've got to have that self belief. You've got to believe in the thing that you are doing, right? Or the thing that you're selling, or whatever that route is. And I was just going to ask you, like, what was the kind of inspiration and the drive and the passion? How did that originate for you to then start your business with that kind of, mindset or
yeah, that
heart set, even, right?
no, look, that's a really good question, and I'm going to be really honest with you. I was working at Tesco. I had a 3-hour round trip to Tesco HQ from my home. My son
Hmm.
had just been born, so naturally, there's this bit of me saying, "I'm not really going to see my son." I'm in a
Yeah.
really strong position at Tesco, but every second I'm not at work, I am thinking about cool stuff that I want for my house. I want to go out on that journey and find cool stuff. I want to go to car boot sales. I want to go to
Right.
charity shops. I want to
Yeah.
find cool, eclectic items to put in my
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
modern house, and I want to throw in some cool
Yeah.
stuff that put some character into our house. So
Yeah.
my
Sure.
main hobby, I always said that look, one day I'd love to start my own business.
Yeah.
Even when I was 16, again, being exposed to so many different brands at Tesco, I worked with the likes of Hasbro, Nike, Mattel, Cadbury's, and you just
Hmm.
become a lover of all things brand. For me, it was packaging,
Yeah.
it was design, it was colors. So I knew that one day I thought I would end up owning a toy shop because I not necessarily want to play with the toys, but the packaging and that sort of resonate with your childhood. You can go onto
Yeah,
eBay and buy your old Star Wars figures, for example.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
saw it as an opportunity to make money. If I'm honest, I'd
yeah,
go and buy 5 Star Wars figures off the shelf, and I would put them in my loft and just forget about them. And I did that for 10 years, I think.
yeah,
Um, and then, so I think I always had this inclination that I had something about me, whether whether it was by fluke or
mhm,
I always knew that I was
yeah,
had that sort of salesy kind of vibe to me. I don't know,
yeah.
but
That
something.
might be, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just thinking to myself, you've just touched on something very interesting there, which I've always thought about, and maybe a bit of a conversation that doesn't have a natural answer, but I want to get your view on it. Do you think you're born an entrepreneur, or do you think anyone can be an entrepreneur?
Absolutely anybody can be an entrepreneur,
Right.
Phil.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
really believe that.
Yeah.
I think certainly there are elements of your genes and what you're exposed to when you're younger and so on,
Yeah.
how you're
Yeah.
brought up and so on.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I truly put my entrepreneurial thinking, if you like, down
Yeah.
to my education. My education was at
Yeah.
Tesco.
Yeah.
I didn't go to university. That
Yeah.
wasn't, unfortunately, I didn't have the choice. My parents couldn't
Yeah.
afford it. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to work at Tesco, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I
No.
loved collecting stuff. So
Yeah.
I think, given that exposure at Tesco, and if you imagine that Tesco, I'm so fond of. I had um, one lady called Jackie Kirby said to me when I was about 18. She says,
Yeah.
"You're so good with people. Would you like to be a manager?" And this was when I was, I think, about 18.
Yeah.
But then on the reverse of that, you had another manager saying, "Carl, you're never going to get anywhere because you're too nice."
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying here is this leads on to another point I want to talk about is
Sure.
integrity is so important,
Right.
which will make you a good entrepreneur.
Right.
I don't necessarily think you need to be born with that mindset, but I think what you'll
Yeah.
find, and certainly I found in my business, is if you don't have certain things that are required to be a successful entrepreneur,
Yeah.
integrity can take you a long way. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is
Yeah.
if you treat people like you want to be treated and go out with
Yeah.
good morals, you're going to get a
Yeah.
long way. And I think today, Phil, especially in the current climate,
Mm.
there's still this what I call old school way of working, in that it's all about the result. Go get it for me, Carl. Go get it.
Yeah.
Which was a
Yeah.
Tesco mindset, if you like.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, there's a go get it in the right way.
Yeah.
And I think, look, that mentality won't fit with all business leaders. They want somebody to come in, be that entrepreneurial thinker, step on people's toes, and go work their way up the corporate ladder.
Yeah. Yeah.
One might say that with myself, I wouldn't have been always been the brightest in the room, but if you ask
Yeah.
who was the most creative,
Yeah.
I might have put my hand up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think just to really answer your question, you definitely don't
Sure.
need to be born into
No.
that.
No.
And I think what
No.
happens as well, Phil, is as time evolves and technology evolves and platforms evolve that you can interact with, lots of
Mhm.
people who don't even have business acumen come up with the best ideas. Um, and that's why I think it's important for those who are listening to this
Mm.
podcast who
Mm.
have that inclination that they've got an idea or they want to turn a hobby into a business. It can be
Yeah.
done. If
Yeah.
I can do it with no degrees, I don't have a bachelor's. I always say my degree was at Tesco, and
Yeah.
experience will prevail. That there's a key word for me right there. Experience, business acumen will take you a
Yeah.
long way to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you talk about integrity. I mean, I'm fully with you there. I mean, I've always felt that myself in terms of, the job that I do, obviously being in sales in general. Obviously, we both are in different areas,
Yeah.
but that's one of the, probably I'd say also actually is the number one value I've always had in my back pocket, because you have to get through that stigma actually a lot of the time where somebody innately won't trust you because you are a salesperson. and
Yes.
um, and I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I understand and totally appreciate that people would think that way, because of the other drivers that involved with being a salesperson. You, like you said earlier, you have to make money, you have to hit a target. Some people's mentality and management and leaders are, you do whatever it takes to get that number. I don't care how you do it. I just want that number.
Yes.
So you take that, don't you? You take that to the market, and then for me, as I'm with you, I take that integrity, and that comes first, and that is what builds the trust, so that you can get over that initial stigma by perseverance, actually, that initially and again through experience, that there is a likelihood there's going to be a judgment or a stigma attached to you, but
Yes.
you can prove it and you can get past it with that self-belief and that value. So I'm totally with you.
Yeah, and do you know what, Phil? I think there is a fine balance with integrity that I think comes with experience. So, for example,
Yeah,
at Tesco, yes, I always led with those values, but maybe sometimes in a fast-paced environment where it's about numbers,
yeah,
can I rely on this guy to get the job done? Can I rely
yeah.
on this job? Can I rely on this guy to do it in the right way? Now, I think put me back to my Tesco career as a senior leader. I always put the people part first, which
Hmm.
sometimes may be deemed as, is this guy going to go out and get me the results? Well,
Yeah.
yes, I was successful in my career, but could I have gone further? Probably yes. I don't
Hmm.
think I was well rounded enough in terms of the sort of business critical, get things done, prove you're that business person, for example.
Yeah.
But I left a legacy of people that I know thought highly of me. I was a
Yeah.
good guy.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this is when you
Yeah.
take the leap and become your own business owner, that
Yeah.
is when you become well rounded. So I
Yeah.
I'm a different beast to what I was at Tesco. That's
Yeah.
because I've learnt now that actually you can still have integrity, but you can still go get results as well.
Yeah. No,
I
sure.
and that's what I love about the fact that I have that blend now of corporate
Yeah.
leadership and business ownership. You
Yeah.
see, sometimes you can relate back to your leader or your boss at the time saying to you, "Look, try and think about."
Yeah.
The problem that you need to solve or the pain points that the customer is
Sure.
having, and maybe I wasn't always there, but as soon as you
Yeah.
run a business, boy, do you learn it quick, Phil.
I bet. I bet. Well, that sounds really interesting. I mean, taking it from then the seed. So you've got that drive, and you've got your values that you want to do this. I understand that. So how did you then go about actually realizing it?
um the thing for me was I did my research, Phil. For me,
Right.
this is the key point right here
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
what I mean by research is I don't go get a pen and paper and
Yeah.
write down my strategy and my USP. I mean, do your research.
Yeah.
I spent 6 months because I wanted to create a powerful message, a powerful brand that was going to
Mhm.
interrupt or disrupt a market, if you like.
Yeah.
I was going into a industry of antiques, which is very well known. There's heritage, there's a lot of provenance that goes with it. But I knew nothing about the industry. All I knew was that I liked the items that were in the industry.
Mhm.
So I had to now turn my passion for the product into a serious business model. So
Yeah.
to do my research, what I mean is like, who are my competitors? So I would literally
Yeah.
stalk the people who would be my competitors,
Yeah.
and I would use that to then
Yeah.
establish, what the gap in the
Mhm.
market is. And for example, if I said to you, everyone was doing this industrial trend, you've got to have this industrial looking office with lockers and swivel chairs and aluminium desks and so on. But I just thought, do you know what? I love fun stuff. I love color. So I'm just going to go out and find eclectic items and have something different in the market. Do something different that everybody else is doing.
Right. Yeah.
But what I'm also going to do is come with the most, well, not the most, the best customer experience you could provide in this
Yeah.
industry. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, there's many things that I would sort of put on a checklist, but it's do your research, find
Mhm.
your audience, but not only that, find the most powerful way to talk to them.
Yeah.
Get your strategy in place. Make sure that you stick to that strategy. That's a really key point. But I think,
Yeah.
think that on the softer side, Phil,
Yeah.
is let's talk about the branding, which was one of my
Yeah.
main successes here. Is
Right.
what I think you need to do if you're taking the leap is build a brand that has a
Yeah.
story attached to it, and it's a
Right.
story that you can talk about during your tenure as that business owner. So
Yeah.
mine was Ralph and Co. Ralph had just been born; he's a few months old.
Mhm.
I put a hat on his head, which was a Victorian hat,
Yeah.
because it was antique, and that formed my logo. And because there was a story attached to it, and my branding I designed around
Yeah.
that, I was able
Yeah.
to use that story to
Mhm.
resonate with customers. This goes
Yeah.
back to that part around customers today do not want to buy from you first. They want to form a relationship with you first.
Yeah.
And people buy into you as a person. They buy into stories, and this is why I really want to say to the next generation
Yeah.
is that, you know, it is about, if you're going into this as a business full time, yes, you've got to go make money. But if you have a powerful message, a brand, that you've built, and you live and breathe that, you can very
Yeah.
quickly engage passionate supporters of your brand, and they will do
Yeah.
the talking for you. And it sounds really daft, Phil, but we're on a podcast. Word of mouth is still the strongest form of marketing,
Mm.
right? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so I think there, yes, you could probably get all of those pieces off Google, but the main thing for
Yeah.
me is around the
Yeah.
brand that you are building here. It's got to be a brand that
Yeah. Yeah.
has integrity, it has a story, it is
Mhm.
visually impactful, and it's memorable is the main thing that I would say. Make it
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting. So, I mean, the whole of the, I mean, for me, like the story that you have that you then want to tell your customers is something that it has to be real for you, authentic. It has to be
Yes,
passionate. You can't kind of make it up, right? It's got to be a real thing, which I get that. And then it's going to connect with people.
abs-
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, no, completely. So, but does this take a lot of kind of money, training, etc.? I mean, how do you've got your passionate story and so on, and yes, customer experience is going to be critical and so on, but you still got to build a business. I mean, do you need a lot of money to do that? How did you practically get that business up and running, selling, making money, etc.?
Again, I think that's a really valid question, because can you find on Google how much it takes to start a business? It will be too
No.
generic, won't it?
Yeah.
So, for me, look, the whole thing about starting a business is there's a little bit about a gut feel here, but
Yeah.
there's also that the things they don't tell you on Google is you've got to
Yeah.
have a contingency, which is I think I can start my business with £5,000 in the bank, but I'm
Yeah.
also going to have £10,000 as a backup, for example, to start a small trading business.
Yeah.
Um, for me, again, it's all about doing your research. So, what I did, for example, was my top three competitors, I knew they had about 100 items available in stock all the time, which said to
Yeah.
me, well, their
Yeah.
stock is valued at about £100,000 then. So,
Right.
I'm
Okay.
I'm kind of looking into I'm kind of looking at different metrics that are going to help me
Yeah.
build how much money I need to start with.
Yeah.
So for me, it is a pretty much finger in the air, but you're good. The main thing for me is you're going to need the contingency part rather than what you need to start with. Do not start a
Yeah.
business with just a few £100 in the bank, because you will find so many things when you start a business. For example,
Uh-huh.
I need a website, right? So in today's market, I don't just need a website. I need something that's responsive, that works on mobile. I need something that
Mhm.
can incorporate my social media channels. I need
Yeah.
something that's interactive. And when you start to think, oh, hang on, I need an
Yeah.
e-commerce website,
Yeah.
there are costs associated with that.
Yeah.
Hosting fees, there are fees to set up email accounts, there
Mm.
are then fees to set up your business cards. You then need to register your domain. And as soon as you start adding up the
Yeah.
10.99s and the £50 and so on, before you even start, you're going to need a couple of £1,000 in the bank to get you up and running. Um,
Yeah.
so the key thing for me as well to hit on the money point of view is
Yeah.
make sure that rather than think about the money, think about, do I have all the tools in place that's going to go make me money? And that for me is, are you ready? Are you resilient? Do you have thick
Mm.
skin? You're going to need it.
Yeah.
Do you have the digital platform that I'm going to need in this day and age?
Yeah.
And do I have all of the ingredients to say I'm ready to go and run my own business? Because I think as soon as you've got a customer experience,
Yeah.
if you like, and you've got your products and you've got the gap in the market, it's all down to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are the face of that business. Remember, I said right
Yeah.
at the start, you're all in
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
off you go.
Yeah, no, completely. So, I mean, to boil that part down, then, if you like, of taking that initial seeded idea and turning it into a business, what we basically said is that you need a strong, passionate story behind it all. You need to do your research. It's going to be life changing in terms of the amount of work you're going to put into it. You're going to live and breathe it. You need to set expectation around you. You need to obviously be different. You need to be very, very customer centric in terms of your plan. And then, what do you think about? Would you agree that it's in some respects a bit of a test and measure type scenario? I mean, you wouldn't just, well, you might. I mean, it's kind of what I'm asking you. I mean, would you be an advocate of the kind of test and measure approach where, for example, you're thinking, oh, I think it might be good, but maybe I'll just make like a prototype, or I'll buy an antique and see if I can flog it for more and see if there's demand for that particular thing, and then see where it leads. What would you advise in that side of things, test and measure versus kind of, because you did mention sort of all in, so I'm just trying to gauge that from your perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think again it's a really valuable question. I'm on the view of that if you can test, learn, evolve, if you like, then obviously do that. And you could
Yeah,
say that I did that because
yeah,
I knew that when I was buying toys as a 16-year-old, that 10 years later I sold a
yeah.
toy that I bought for £1.99 for £1,000.
Whoa,
Yeah, it was a Star Wars
awesome.
toy. Now
Yeah,
imagine buying several of those.
mm,
I wasn't doing it as a business, but I was probably
yeah,
indirectly testing, could I make money? So you could say that entrepreneurial spirit was there, Phil. But
yeah,
I think if you can do it, I would do it. But the thing for me
yeah,
is then you're
yeah,
not really, how do I put it? You're not really then going all in and
yeah,
just trying to think of the right way to put it. I think you've just got to go with it, if I'm honest. I think if you're
yeah,
going to put all
yeah,
that time and effort
yeah,
into running your own business, you've got to
yeah,
go. You've got to believe
yeah.
in yourself.
Yeah, no, completely.
You could say the test learn. I mean, test learn evolve works with a lot of global businesses who have the backing and the funds and the time to do so. But I
Yeah,
think when you're starting out on your own,
yeah,
imagine at this stage you've done all your research and you've got the self belief and you've got your product. So you've done everything
yeah,
on your checklist. I think you're ready. So
yeah,
my view would be go for it.
yeah, yeah.
What can you lose? As the end is would be my point.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the critical thing, isn't it? Because there is obviously some nuts and bolts you're going to have to take in consideration there. You do want to go all in, but you're not going to remortgage your house 200 grand and then smash it into something and then see it all go. So it's not like, you don't mean obviously that side of it. It's more the spirit of it, and then obviously be careful in terms of the investment you're going to put into it. Kind of like you said, right?
That's right. There's an element of being brave here, Phil.
Yeah, sure.
And I was brave. I mean, like I said, I had no experience building a
Yeah,
business, and I learnt more during, on the pitch and the match day in my business than I did with that
yeah,
6 months of research before. I
yeah,
mean,
completely.
you've got to be versatile. You've got to be willing to accept that that
Yeah,
didn't work out how I thought it would. But in the
yeah,
words of Tesco,
yeah,
make mistakes fast, recover
yeah,
quickly, right?
yeah,
So I was all
absolutely.
about
Yeah,
you've got to be resilient. You can't go and sulk if trade
yeah,
doesn't pick up or there's this
no,
expense you never thought of. You've got to um like I said though, it's challenging because you cannot mentally prepare yourself for running
yeah,
a business.
yeah, no, sure.
That's
And actually, it's a good point you mentioned that, because I was going to say to you, were there any particular big clangers that you actually went through, and then that empowered you? What did you learn? Were there any big things that happened that stood you in good stead?
um yeah, I mean there are many. I mean one key thing for
Yeah,
me was this is the most bonkers things about the success of my business is I came from a marketing brand background, and when I started running my business, the bit they don't tell you on Google is that you're not going
yeah,
to have time to use
yeah,
your specialty of being a marketeer.
right,
So what I found was I became so embroiled with I was the picker, the packer, the buyer, the merchandiser,
yeah,
the guy that responds to emails. I was every part of that business. The bit where I thought I could have competitive edge was in the marketing. I rarely got to, Phil.
yeah,
So naturally, my way around that was, well, look, the best form of marketing is word of mouth. So that's why I need to go and get all of my friends and family and customers and get
Mhm.
them included in my business so they can market it for me.
Yeah.
And that today, that realization was that, you know, don't do this on your own, reach out,
No.
is a key thing I
Yeah.
would say to the next
Yeah.
generation, is that
No, that's really good.
when you start your business, you must go and tell your friends and family what you're doing and get them
Yeah.
included in your business. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is kill two birds with one stone. What I did
Yeah.
was I got some friends from my boot camp. I said, look, I've got this new business. I'm selling antiques. I want to make it a bit different. So I wanted to put them in the photo with the product. And what
Yeah.
it does, it adds personality to your business first and foremost.
Yeah.
But from a business point of view, it adds scale
Mm.
and makes the customer buying decision a lot easier. But
Sure.
what
Sure.
happened with that, Phil, was as soon as my friend Adam or Jess got home, the photos on Facebook and Instagram, they're both tagged. All the other friends see
Yeah.
it and say, whoa, what's this business then? That looks so cool. It looks like you had so much fun.
Yeah.
And that's how my business really took off. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
because I realized that right at the start, I could not do this on my own. I needed to get other
Mm.
people to go on the
Mm.
journey with me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I've some of the support that my network gave me during my business is what made it successful. I
Mm.
do not
Mm.
believe that my business achieved what it did without the support of many other people.
No. No.
So
Absolutely.
key tip there, I
Mm.
think.
Yeah. So, and then you evolved that into a consultancy, right?
Yes, that's correct. And this is a for me, it's a I look at it as you could say it was a cheeky little move for me, but there was some thought behind this.
Yeah.
um, and I think, look, sometimes I beat myself up about this and think, have I failed? But actually, I look at it to think, when you're running your own business,
Yeah.
you have to make big decisions, right? And
Yeah.
3 years after trading as an antique dealer, remember I was doing my hobby now as a business. I'd
Yeah.
realised that original hobby that I loved, the passion for the end product wasn't there anymore for me. I
Yeah.
did not enjoy antiques anymore. I wasn't interested in them. And what started to happen
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
I wouldn't keep focused on what I was here to do, which was to trade them and make money.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I realised after 3 years that I didn't want to do what I was doing. And
Sure.
yes, it hurt a little because the
Yeah.
realization was I didn't want to do what I've built up, but I knew that I had something else in the locker, how I could evolve my business, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was down to all of the hard work I'd put in. If you imagine me 3 years, I was walking around antique fairs buying products. The amount of time I would hear, "That's the guy from Ralph and Co." And I'd get
Yeah.
people come up and talk to me and say, "Look, I've seen your website. It is awesome. It's so much fun. How on
Yeah.
earth did you do that?" And over the years, I'd naturally have conversations to say, "Look, I've come from a marketing background. I was exposed, had a wonderful career at Tesco and dunnhumby, where I was
Yeah.
exposed to
Yeah.
insights and how you use data to drive creative." And the culmination of
Yeah.
working both those businesses allowed me to have a website that was never been seen before in the antiques industry, if you like.
Yeah. Sure.
My website was a fashion website, a template that I use in the antique trade. That's how bonkers it sounds.
Yeah.
But what it meant was I could have a product that quickly switched into a model, a person showing off the product, and
Mhm.
it was innovation.
Yeah.
And people liked it. And once you add that innovation to the personality and integrity that I led with, it naturally gained a load of followers.
Yeah.
So, where I'm going with this was I knew during past conversations that I could very quickly turn my attention to some of my former colleagues and business professionals to help them shape their businesses differently as well.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
made a very seamless transition to change the brand from Ralph and Co Antiques to Consult Ralph and Co.
Yeah.
And as I was selling off my stock, I was already consulting, helping other brands
Yeah.
with their digital presence and their brand strategy and their integrity and so on.
Yeah.
And then it moved on from not just antique dealers into other
Yeah.
realms, such as working with an artist, working with a police sergeant who wants to be a mental health coach, working with
Yeah.
salons.
yeah,
numerous clients who saw the
yeah,
value and the
yeah,
way I conducted myself as a business
yeah.
person.
No, that's great. That's great. So just moving on to what's happened now, then, if you like, is that COVID's come along. Obviously, some markets have been massively affected by that, as we know. Some are just going ballistic due to obviously people being at home and so on. And we're being open and honest here about, with the current situation for you. Is it right that you were saying that you're quite interested in actually looking to go back into the world of kind of not necessarily the corporate world, but going back into a business and actually helping a business to, utilize your expertise?
That's right, Phil. And the honest truth is, a couple of
Mm,
months before COVID struck,
yeah,
I'd made the decision that, do you know what, I'm really missing something here, and
yeah,
I'd like to talk openly about this because when you run your own
sure,
business, I did it for 5 years.
yeah,
Being a sociable person, running a business
hmm,
can be very lonely, and that's one thing
mm,
I'd like to add
yeah,
to that list of what Google doesn't tell you.
yeah,
Doesn't make you a lonely person. You still have family and friends and everything
yeah,
else. But
yeah,
when you are running your own business and you're all in, you're mainly just talking to yourself and you're reaching out to your network now and again. But it's solely on you. And what I
mm,
realized a few months ago was it's great being a consultant. It's great adding value to other businesses. But there's something is missing. Is that it's that let's go achieve success as a team rather than on your own.
yeah,
I miss the
yeah,
corporate buzz
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
having so many amazing years at Tesco and working with so many great individuals. The thing that you miss is that feel. Let's turn left and talk to that guy. Let's turn right or
yeah,
look over the desk and talk to that person. You know,
absolutely.
you miss that. You don't just miss
Yeah,
the look. There's some wonderful business people who you miss
mm,
talking to. They've all got different attributes, but you just miss
yeah,
that human
yeah,
connection, which is what
yeah,
I've realised that now is a good opportunity to go and take
absolutely.
my corporate leadership and now that blend with business
Mm,
ownership and really
yeah,
progress
yeah,
myself to that next
yeah,
level of I've got so much value that I could add to our brand now.
yeah,
That's why I
absolutely.
want to go back into corporate. So
Yeah,
yes, to answer your question,
yeah, yeah.
COVID
No.
has, if you like,
Hmm.
cancelled any contracts that I did have because they couldn't afford my services.
Yeah, sure.
But I remain positive because
Mm,
I'm going on a different journey, and I hope
yeah,
it resonates with somebody. I know there is
sure,
somebody out there who would
sure.
want someone with my experience in their business.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's so great, isn't it, that there's that, like you mentioned at the beginning, there's that integrity that says, actually, this season is ending. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is why people change career and stuff, right? In any way. But like you've gone from building a very successful brand, which still exists, obviously, then you've moved that into consultancy because that's how you felt the next season was. And then this has naturally come to a kind of an end at the moment, and COVID has kind of facilitated that. And now you want to take your expertise back into the market. So, I mean, that sounds true to who you are. That openness and that honesty. But I know what you mean. I mean, I work in. I'm privileged to work in a small team and have the opportunity to bounce off people and use my values and passion to enthuse other people and mentor kind of youngsters who give me a ring now and again and say, hey Phil, can I bounce? And that's such an honor, isn't
Yes.
it, to have
Yeah.
that kind of environment. So I completely get you. I mean, if the guys listening, they want to get in touch with you about this, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, at the moment, Phil, my website is still live, which is
Yeah.
www.consultralphandco.co.uk.
Uh-huh.
Um, but naturally, my focus right now is I'm currently looking at building my network and
Yeah,
meeting new people like yourself through LinkedIn.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um, the challenge I have now is how do I put on a CV that I think differently to other people? That's my challenge
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
I know I've got so much to offer and a very advantageous split of experience, but for me now
yeah,
it's finding that organization that
yeah.
wants that guy who thinks outside the box and
Yeah,
can go and get results, but do it in the right way
sure.
as well. So
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure there are many because that's such a powerful ingredient, as you've mentioned, to make sure that you can differentiate yourselves as the brand out there, amongst
sure.
everybody else. So, I mean, just coming back to just before we finish off, Just to come back to the main thing we were talking about around, the excellent stuff you've talked about from your experience of actually building a business and what it takes to be entrepreneurial and so on. If you were just to very quickly boil that down into a few top tips so that the guys can take it away who were thinking about this and they would feel focused, if you like, what would you batten that down to?
The first thing I would say is believe in yourself and press the
Yeah,
button. Go,
yeah,
take the leap, because
yeah,
I love the fact that I can say that I did it,
mm,
and even like it was challenging, it was tough.
sure.
You will never turn around and say, I wish I didn't have done that. I wish I hadn't have done that.
Oh,
Sorry.
100%.
So it's go do it, believe in yourself. You've then got to be passionate about what you are doing. You've got to
Mm,
live and breathe it. You've got to put your face out there to your consumer.
mm,
You've got to do your research. You've got
yeah,
to have a good strategy. You've got to stick to it.
yeah,
You've got to be highly resilient and have thick skin.
yeah,
You've got to prepare for emotional change.
yeah,
You must prepare your family
yeah,
that you're going on this journey.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
mm,
and then I think the last thing I would say is you've got to remember that uh, you're all in with this, and you've got to reach out to people. One thing I just did not do well, and I'll openly say this, is I forgot to stop, I forgot to talk, and I forgot
mm,
to talk to my network, because
yeah,
as I've just
good.
said right at the end there,
Yeah,
running a business can become lonely,
yeah,
in that you're doing it all yourself. So make
yeah,
sure that
yeah,
take people with you along your journey more than what I did. I took people,
yeah,
but I could
100%.
have used them so much more.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely.
and yeah, that would be it really. It's
Yeah, yeah,
you don't need a degree to go and run a business, Phil.
absolutely.
You need those ingredients: self belief.
Yeah,
Go do it. Go do it is
that's
what I
it.
would say.
Amazing. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much, Karl. That was awesome. I look forward to hopefully having you back on here in a few months' time, understanding, hearing where you've ended up and what you're doing. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Hope it's been of value. So if you haven't done so already, please register at segmentify.com/podcast. And that will allow you guys to listen to all the podcasts that have already been published and any of the new ones coming out. And you can obviously get hold of Karl's, will be up there as well, along with all the other channels that we put it on, the usual ones, really. If you've got any questions, you want to be involved in any way in the show, or you have any particular topics actually that you want us to research and talk about, then please do email me at phil@segmentify.com.
Put us to the test and let us prove we can drive more revenue for you. Sign up for a completely free proof of concept or split test against your current provider, set up and optimized by our team within a few days at segmentify.com/demo.